recording the presentation. Oh, you're on it, Kara. Love it.
Thank you, Devin, for that lovely welcoming fire. Also wanted to take a minute to thank everyone for joining us this evening. This can be a challenging topic. Tonight's presentation will be on the signs of suicide curriculum that will be taught in schools to your children. And so we wanted to provide this opportunity for the parents to have a view of the curriculum as well. And I just wanted to take a minute to acknowledge that this topic, as Devin mentioned, can be challenging, and it's also really important to talk about. It's something that has impacted our community locally and maybe even personally to some of you who are attending this evening. And I just wanted to remind everyone to be gentle with yourself tonight. If you need a break, please take it as needed. And just, again, thank you for being here. Just some housekeeping rules for all of our webinars. We will have attendees muted throughout the evening. The meeting is being recorded, so feel free to have your video off or on, whatever you feel more comfortable with. If you have questions or comments, please use the chat function to send questions directly to us throughout the presentation. We will have some time for Q&A at the end. Also, this webinar is for informational and educational purposes only. Your participation in this webinar is not intended to be a substitute for professional, psychological, psychiatric, or medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. And to introduce ourselves this evening, my name is Kara Peterson. I am a marriage and family therapist trainee, and I am at San Marcos High School. All three of us work for the Family Service Agency, and we are contracted through SB Unified School District to provide services at the junior and high schools.
Hello, everyone. I'm Raquel Del Carmo, a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I am at Gallia Valley Junior High. And thank you all for being here tonight.
Hey everyone. Yes, I agree. I thank you all for being here. My name is Devin Healy Nelson. I'm a master's in social work candidate, and I am one of the Family Service Agency staff members at La Cumbre Junior High School.
So as we have mentioned, this can be a challenging topic, so please take care of yourself, take breaks as needed. We have resources here for you. Locally, we have the safety line, which is available from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. for individuals up to 20 years of age. We also have a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week crisis line through the Santa Barbara County Department of Behavioral Wellness, and that is for all ages. We've also included a national suicide prevention lifeline, and we do have a text service that is now available nationally as well. So those are some resources if you need them.
Yeah, I do just want to jump in here if that's okay. We would encourage you all to maybe create a contact in your phone with some of these resources, the local ones or the national ones. We encourage all of our students when we first have our screenings with them to create these contacts in their phone, because you're never going to know when you or somebody else you're with might need them. So especially relevant to tonight's conversation is like the safety mobile crisis support, and access is great for all types of crises in our county. But yeah, feel free to just write these down, save them in your phone really quick. And we'll share these again at the end too.
And then before we get into our agenda, I would just also like to acknowledge a common misconception around talking about suicide, is that can plant seeds or encourage that type of harmful behavior. This is actually not true. Suicidal thoughts are much more dangerous when they are alone inside somebody's head, and inviting someone to have a caring and compassionate conversation about what's going on for them and letting them express these feelings can be quite helpful. So just wanted to mention that as we get started as well. This presentation and curriculum that we're sharing was created by Mindwise, and we are presenting it from FSA for our local Santa Barbara students and their families. So for tonight's agenda, we'll be reviewing helping your child save a life. We'll go over youth suicide prevention basics. This includes the strategy of ACT, which is acknowledge, care, and tell, for when you or your student does have someone share with them that they are having suicidal thoughts or inclinations. We'll also provide you some information on how to support your child if your child comes to you and tells you that they have a friend that is experiencing suicidal ideations as well. We'll address some coping skills, and we will provide resources again at the end as well.
Okay, thank you so much for getting us started, Kara. So we're going to talk a little bit about why suicide happens. So it's basically an attempt to stop intense emotional pain. As you can see here, there's this cube that serves just as a visual for a complex mix of factors that could lead someone to think of about suicide. So as you can see here, there's thoughts of suicide, loss of hope, untreated depression, access to guns, drinking or drug use, isolating and withdrawing. So let's talk a little bit about the untreated depression. So basically the majority of people who die by suicide have an underlying mental health disorder, most commonly depression. These conditions are treatable. However, many kids struggle without getting support, without being able to ask for help. And when depression goes untreated, young people may begin to feel so hopeless that they may start considering suicide. Another one that's a big one is drinking or drug use. So many young people who struggle with depression, also struggle with alcohol or drug use in a way to try to mask the pain, avoid the pain. So basically talking to your child about the dangers of using alcohol or drugs to cope with negative emotions is very important. So if you are aware that your child is using substances, please go ahead and seek support for them, because that combination is not a good one for sure. Another one that's a big one is access to guns. So suicide crises are often very short term, but having access to guns makes it so that, it's so much easier to carry the act in an instant. So many people keep unlocked guns in their homes or making them easy to get quick. So, and which could be deadly for a young person who's considering suicide. So would be important to help reduce that risk by perhaps, if you are not, if you can choose to have a gun stored in your home. But, if you do choose to have a gun stored in your home, make sure to keep it locked, unloaded, and lock and store the ammunition separately. Because, a student who might be in distress might make a decision that, would be in the moment. And if they don't have access to it, the likelihood of them actually following through with suicide will be much, much smaller. And the next one we're just going to look at briefly is the thoughts of suicide. So once someone has thoughts of suicide, it does not necessarily automatically mean that they're wanting to die. As it says here, it's basically an attempt to try to stop intense emotional pain. They don't think there's any other way out. So they're just trying to solve the issue of feeling very, very hopeless and not feeling like there's a way to feel better. So people generally do not want to die, and they just want the pain to stop. So we'll move on to the next slide here. We'll talk a little bit more about how we can help prevent suicide. You play an important part in helping keep young people safe. So as you'll see, we'll share another cube here with some things that we'll be looking at. Okay, so these are the many areas that we can help intervene before someone reaches the point of considering suicide. So for instance, you can help be the one that instill feelings of hope. You can help them come up with coping skills to deal with the emotional pain. If you feel like, they're needing of additional support, you can help be the one that puts that together, a treatment for depression. you can prevent, as we talked earlier, in the previous slide, we can prevent, keeping the one preventing access to the guns. You can encourage them to practice healthy habits. And you can also encourage a connection to peers and trusted adults for them, which all can help and, prevent suicide. So that's how you can play an important role. So those are things that you can do for sure to help a student who might be struggling. So as you can see here, your child can play a supporting role. The students will be learning this program, the SOS, through the school. They will have all the information needed, but it's important. Your child, you can help empower your child to maybe be able to perhaps support a friend of theirs who is struggling, who might need some support with their own feelings, or maybe need support communicating their feelings to a trusted adult. So you can be the one that helps support your teen and being able to perhaps be there for another friend who might be struggling and could use the support in dealing with their own feelings.
All right, so now we want to transition to going into more of the ACT model, which is being taught to the students who are going through the Signs of Suicide curriculum within our district throughout the next couple of months. So as we have mentioned, through the Signs of Suicide, or SOS curriculum, the students will watch a video and then engage in class discussion to learn these steps, to learn how to act. And ACT stands for Acknowledge, Care, and Tell. As for A, acknowledge is acknowledge signs of depression or suicide in a friend. Then care, show their friend that they care. And T, tell a trusted adult. So parents and caregivers are an important part of this message as well, as trusted adults in their children's lives. Like here, tell a trusted adult. Students are encouraged to talk with you and other trusted adults about the concerns for themselves or concerns for their friend that they might see. So we really want to support you in being more familiar with the information that the students are learning to help prepare you to engage in these conversations with them. So we'll dive into each of these elements of ACT a little bit more deeply now. All right. Oh, whoops, I'm sorry, did I skip? Okay, here we go. Okay. So the first one, as we mentioned, A, is acknowledge warning signs. So most people do give clues that they're thinking about suicide. So here are some of the clues that we encourage you to be attuned to. So first of all, anger. I mean, we all get angry sometimes, right? But if the anger seems to be a bit out of the ordinary, or perhaps like the response of anger seems like really significant compared to the level of intensity of the trigger, what triggered the anger, that could be something to notice. Another warning sign of depression or suicide could be big changes in behavior or withdrawal from family or friends. So maybe the person is acting really different or isolating a lot from other people. Please do take notice of that. Third would be hopelessness. Do they seem really down, or that they've lost hope? Perhaps hope in the future or hope in the current situation that they're in. Next would be sleeping more or less. Are they having a hard time falling asleep? Are they having a hard time staying asleep, like waking up a lot during the middle of the night? Or are they sleeping in a lot later than normal, or maybe falling asleep throughout the day a lot? That could be something to notice as well. Drinking or drug use. These substances are sometimes used to cope with or escape from reality. And it can definitely be a warning sign if the person is youth, underage, who might be using these substances. Next would be overwhelming pain. Is this person experiencing lots of pain or sadness in their life, perhaps due to a significant transition, a loss of a loved one, or a traumatic life event? I do think that it's worthy of noting that in terms of a significant transition, we're all still in this transitional, overwhelming time of the pandemic of COVID-19. So really this has caused a lot of overwhelming pain for a lot of people. Lastly, another warning sign could be talking about suicide. And we want to distinguish that, of course, here we want to normalize the conversation about suicide that can really be supportive. But on the other hand, perhaps like a warning sign of talking about suicide could be if it seems like that person might be romanticizing suicide, or if you get the vibe that the way that they talk about death or suicide might be hinting to something deeper, that's when it really could be a warning sign. So yeah, these are some of the signs that the students are learning to identify through the Signs of Suicide video that they'll be presented in school. And it's important for you all to know these signs as well. So next, the C part of the acronym ACT stands for Show You Care. So students are learning about the power of listening to their friends in order to show that they care. They're being encouraged to practice active listening when they're concerned about a friend. And active listening is when somebody is using verbal and nonverbal cues to show the person that they're really listening and engaged in what they're saying. So one can use a few simple phrases like here on the screen to show that they really care and just listen to what the person might be saying. Hey, it's okay to feel that way. Or tell me more about that. Or I'm here for you. Another really important one that I like to use with some of my clients or people in my life when they're talking with me about some of the really tough stuff they're going through is, hey, thank you for telling me. That's really brave. I know that can be scary to tell somebody. So a lot of times, especially us as adults, I'm not sure if any of you all can relate, but I think that we a lot of times have this initial reaction to fix, right? If somebody is talking with us about a challenge or a problem or something like a big bummer or a depression or suicidal thoughts they might be experiencing, our initial reaction might be to, oh, what can I do to fix or make them feel better? What can we do? But really, it's more about being. And we want to emphasize with you initially, before the doing part of telling a trusted adult, showing you care is really just being there, actively listening, showing the support in that moment. So now the T part of the ACT acronym is Tell a Trusted Adult. So after acknowledging the warning signs and showing you care, the SOS Signs of Suicide curriculum really encourages the students to tell a trusted adult. So the students are encouraged to think about the adults in school and out of school that they can turn to in times of distress. And the SOS curriculum emphasizes to students that if you're worried that your friend is thinking about suicide, you need to tell a trusted adult. It's important for youth not to promise to their friends to keep these suicidal ideations a secret. It can be really scary for someone to open up to a friend about their depression or thoughts of suicide. It can be really scary. So perhaps that person who's disclosing some of those thoughts, they might ask the friend they confide in, like, don't tell anybody, please. I don't want to worry my mom. I don't want to worry my teacher. I don't want to worry these people in my life. But really, it's crucial for those friends that the people might be disclosing to, or the adults, it's crucial not to keep it a secret, even though it might feel so uncomfortable when the person's saying, hey, please don't tell anybody. I don't want to be a burden or worry my parent. It's so important not to keep it a secret. It is worth perhaps making a friend mad, like we see on the right. It could be worth making a friend mad by telling a trusted adult in efforts to help save that person's life. So we imagine that you all are trusted adults to some of the children in your life. Whether it's your own children, your nieces or nephews, or your neighbors, or your children's friends, your students perhaps, whoever it might be, we really encourage you to be ready. If they come to you with a concern about themselves or other children, be ready to be there to show support and take action with them in order to protect that person.
Thank you, Devin. Now we're going to talk a little bit about what to do if you find yourself as the trusted adult and perhaps your child or another student comes to you What can you do to support them and help them with this information that they have learned? The best thing you can do is listen to their concerns and encourage them to seek help. As Devin mentioned, it's really important that you don't promise to keep secrets. This is definitely information that needs to be shared and help needs to be sought if you have a student or child coming to you with concerns of a friend of theirs having suicidal thoughts. Contact their friends' parents directly and share your child's concerns. Also, as we mentioned, FSA has counselors at the junior high and high schools, and I believe Calm has counselors at the elementary schools. There should be mental health support. You can find that support at your child's specific school location by talking to their teachers, or also the academic counselors can help you find out who the mental health support people are at your child's school. If you have an immediate safety concern, there is the access and safety line. And of course, there is 911 is also available in emergencies as well. It's also really important to reassure your child that they did the right thing, especially when they feel like they've broken a promise or they might have made their friend mad by sharing the secret. It's really important to reassure them that sharing this information is the right thing to do and remind them that they are helping to save someone's life. This is a big one, managing reactions. As we've mentioned, this can be a challenging, scary topic. And it's really important to remember to be a human and give yourself permission to be human. This can feel really uncomfortable, and that's okay. And that's a natural response to this topic. One of the things that you can do that can be helpful when dealing with the subject of suicide is talk to a supportive friend, either before or after for a debrief or both. We have highlighted the importance of trusted adults for our students, but even as adults, it's important for us to have those people in our lives, whether it's a partner or a friend or a family member that we can talk to when we have these big feelings and experiences. And again, it's most important that when we learn this information about suicidal thoughts, that we don't keep it a secret. And that we share it. It's helpful for us to process it with other people, and it's really important in saving lives to share that information with professionals that can help as well. Some protective factors are like coping skills and things we can do proactively to help people before they get to the point of having suicidal thoughts. By building up protective factors in our daily lives and our relationships. Again, these have all been modified due to the COVID pandemic. Connection is super important. And so finding ways to continue fostering those connections in school and activities and sports and communities, even if it has to be over Zoom or over the phone or in small groups, whatever is safe and appropriate for your family. But those relationships really are important protective factors. Also, let your child know that you're ready to listen and that whenever they have a concern, you're someone that they can come to and encourage that conversation and that open dialogue. And remind them that they don't need to worry alone, that if they're struggling, that there are people that they can talk to. And maybe it's an experience that you have had as well, and you can connect with your child over those experiences, that these are things that a lot of people have gone through, and there's a lot of people that they can reach out to for support and help, and that they don't have to feel alone in these matters.
Thank you, Kara. So, as a parent, you can definitely be the one that's helping your child build coping skills. So, a coping skill helps people deal with unpleasant feelings and hard times. So, basically, you see here this list of things that could be really helpful as coping skills: exercise, writing down what you're grateful for, talking to friends and family, listening to music. So, basically, the important piece about this is that this varies. It depends on your child. Some things work for some things don't work for others. So maybe at a time where things, they're not in crisis, encourage them, help them brainstorm activities that they enjoy or they've done in the past that have been helpful for them when they're feeling down. So helping them come up with some ideas for things that could work for them. So ideas could be like maybe playing with a pet, or reading a book or watching a fun show, getting into competitive sports. I know it's a little tricky right now, but there's some places where you can still kind of do that, or maybe getting into games. So you can be the one that helps them have, like, these coping skills in their little toolbox, so that when they're feeling distressed or in need of a way to cope with their feelings, that they know some things that they can go to help them feel better. So let's talk a little bit more about, hang on just a second, I'm having a little trouble with my screen here. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how to talk to your teen. So it's important for you to take some time to start a conversation about mental health. The more open you can be about your own struggles, the more honest you can be, the better. You're modeling that to them. You can even share some of the coping skills that have helped you deal with any sort of distress. We don't seem to talk as much as a society about mental health like we talk about physical health. If someone is having a leg pain or headache, it's easy to just talk about that, or ask more questions about that particular pain. It's just much more normal. So it's about, we can have that role to normalize conversations about mental health issues as well. Feelings of depression and anxiety are often hidden because they are confused, maybe embarrassed, ashamed. They don't want to worry you. So, you can be the one that opens the door, and you can be the one that, make sure your child knows that they can talk to you about mental health. So normalizing the conversation, normalizing these feelings is very important. Depression is not a character flaw. It's a serious mental health disorder that can be treated, and anxiety the same way. So these are some things that you can try to do to make sure that you're, opening up the door to a very productive conversation. So asking open-ended questions, letting them see, letting them take the conversation where they want it to go, or they need it to go. Don't rush to solve their problems like Devin talked in the beginning. Instead, ask them what they think would help them in their situation, because they know themselves better than anyone else. And I'm sure that they've, everyone has gone through struggles in the past. And it might be that, in the past when they've had struggles, they use this or that coping skill. And they might know, oh, okay, well, actually, this could be helpful for me in my situation. Also, be available and make sure your child knows it. It's very common. We all work here, Kara and Devin, we all work here with students at the schools. And it's very common that they, sometimes are not ready to talk about something, and they don't want to go into the depths of talking about something that's difficult. There's a lot of stigma around, mental health issues. So again, just opening that door, going back to that, letting them know that you're around to talk to them later whenever they're ready. So again, you could be the one that's proactive about starting the conversation and opening that door. Okay, so in this slide here, we're going to talk a little bit more about how to actually ask about suicide, which is not an easy thing to do, but it's okay to do. As we talked about in the beginning, asking about it will not put the idea into someone's head. If someone is feeling depressed, it just might be something that's been going on in their mind for a really long time, but no one has ever asked about it. So they're dealing with it alone. So again, asking about it just lets them see that their pain, or you're noticing a change in their functioning. And it shows that you're not afraid to help them if they need the support. So in the screen here, you can see a couple ways to ask a little bit more about it. So, you could be more indirect. You can say, do you wish you would go to sleep and not wake up. It's a thought that we hear quite often with some of the students that we work with, who are depressed. Another one that you could potentially ask is, do you wish you were dead? So these are more indirect ways to ask so that you can get a sense of where they're at, where their thoughts have been, some of the things that they have considered. Also, you could be very direct. You could really ask, have you thought about killing yourself? It's not an easy thing to do. So again, it's one of those things that you can practice asking, maybe even before you have that conversation. Have you thought about killing yourself? Or have you had thoughts about suicide? So basically, these are not easy conversations to have, but they need to happen, because someone needs to be the one supporting these students so they're not suffering in silence, so that they know that they're not alone and that they can have the support if they need. So again, this is a difficult conversation no matter what. And if it's difficult for you to be able to ask these questions, you can enlist other people, enlist another trusted adults in their lives, maybe the other parent, or maybe a relative, or maybe the school counselor, or pediatrician, or even just the national hotline. The workers there can help be supportive of your student in asking these difficult questions. So I don't know if Devin or Kara, want to add anything to this?
Yeah, I did just want to say that, the cheesy saying, practice makes perfect. I don't know if there's ever a way to be perfect about talking about suicide, but what I can say is that practicing really does help. For me, in my experience as a therapist, as a counselor, it's been a growing process for me to grow more comfortable talking with my students about suicide and asking these questions. And I can say that sometimes I do get really clammy and awkward, and my armpits start to sweat and my face turns red. But I can say that it's definitely gotten more easy as time goes on. And so I know it might seem weird, but maybe even just to yourself right now, even saying the word suicide or reading one of these questions out loud right now, perhaps that can be one step that you could take even right now to start to gain a little bit more comfort in engaging in these conversations. So then let's say the time might come up when you feel like it might be helpful to ask your child, family member, friend, loved one of these questions, you might have a little practice under your belt. That's something that I would add.
Yeah, thank you for adding that. Appreciate that.
Yeah. All right. So now we're going to talk about tips for getting teens to talk. My guess is that we can all think about an example of when we've had a hard time getting a teen to talk. I mean, I can even say that I was definitely that teen at times when my parents or my family members would ask me, "Hey, how was your day?" "Good." "What'd you learn at school today?" "Nothing." So I think that we could all use some of these tips. But so here's some tips that we wanted to provide you with for getting these teens to talk. And these tips could be helpful in daily life to talk about how the kid's day was, or it really could be helpful in getting these teens to talk more about the depression or suicidal thoughts that they might be experiencing. So first tip is having a teen-led family meeting and let your teen set the agenda. Secondly, would be playing a game. This makes teens more comfortable talking about a difficult topic. We use this strategy a lot in our therapy sessions. I'll say that. It's a lot easier to talk with a kid about how they're feeling while playing Uno or playing another game. Number 3, if the subject of suicide comes up in a movie or a TV show, have a discussion about it. Maybe use that opportunity when the conversation or when the subject comes up naturally to check in with your teen or engage in the conversation about it. That could be a natural segue, so you might not even have to necessarily bring the topic up in the first place. Fourth tip would be going out for a walk. The relaxed environment of being outside in nature can make it easier for some teens to open up. Also, I think moving your body and doing something, having a way to channel some of your energy can also get out some of the anxiety during the conversation as well. Number 5 would be taking a drive. Sometimes it's easier to talk about topics when you're not making eye contact. So when you're both looking forward at the road, not looking at each other, maybe they'll be more comfortable. 6 would be continuing the conversation or have multiple mini conversations on a regular basis instead of one big talk. And we really do want to emphasize this one. By making this dialogue about suicide more, or just mental health in general, more of an ongoing normal dialogue, that can really open the door for them to really open up when they might be experiencing some stressful times. Like, I think that I think that it might be a temptation for somebody to think perhaps like, okay, we had the talk about suicide. And you might say in the moment, hey, you feel free to come to me whenever you need support. But really, if somebody is feeling really depressed, it is hard to reach out for help. So having more of an ongoing mini conversation throughout on a regular basis really could be a way to support. Number 7 would be your trusted adults. Sometimes a grandparent or a trusted aunt or uncle or a coach or a sibling or a friend's parent, they can break through when parents or caregivers perhaps have been shut out or have a hard time engaging in conversation with their children. So we also really want to encourage you all to make a mental note or make a physical note of these tips that we're sharing and share them with other parents or caregivers. Perhaps one of these tips really could help another caregiver to come alongside and support their teen in their depression or suicidal ideation. So please don't be shy in sharing some of these tips, especially the ones that work for you if you've tried them out. All right, so now to talk a little bit about action steps. So you can all walk away with some action steps that you can take. Number 1 would be look out for warning signs and seek help immediately. Like we talked about, just noticing, acknowledging those warning signs. Number 2 would be to help build coping skills and positive supports for your child. As Raquel had mentioned, encourage your child to build coping skills that work for them, listening to music, exercising, journaling, art, deep breathing, and encourage their relationships with positive, supportive people in their life. Number 3 would be talk to your child about suicide and be ready to listen when your child acts. Use those tips for conversation that we just suggested and keep the door open for them to come to you to talk about suicide, since we never know when they or a friend of theirs may be in need. And remember, ACT stands for acknowledge the warning signs, C, show them you care, and T, tell a trusted adult. So here, we just wanted to show a little graph. But before we do that, I want to encourage us all to just take a minute, okay? I don't know about anybody else, but I'm feeling a little tense. So if you need, stretch it out, take a deep breath. You still breathing, make sure to take a deep breath to calm down. We know that this can be some tense, anxiety-inducing material. So we're here together, we're in this together. If you want to even stand up, take a drink of water, do what you need. So while caregivers and parents play an important role, they are not alone in their fight to prevent youth suicide. Nor are youth alone responsible for preventing their friends from dying by suicide. Our schools and communities must work together to support the students, to support the youth, to support the adults, and together we can make a difference. So as we can see here in the graph, suicide is the second leading cause of death for teenagers in the US behind accidents, mostly car accidents. And as we can see in the graph, over the past 15 years or so, our nation has dramatically reduced the number of teens dying by car accidents. And that's awesome. It's gone from 33.3% to 17.7%. And how did we do it? Oh, goodness, sorry, not percent. It's deaths per 100,000, my bad. So how did we make that decrease? Well, some examples of steps that have been taken to decrease the deaths by a car accident are by having safer cars, having safer roads, increased driver's education requirements for drivers, strict licensing requirements for teens, increased drinking and driving laws, the texting while driving free laws or hands-free laws, reducing speed limits. Those are some of the measures that have been taken, and clearly some of those measures have been effective in decreasing the death rate via accidents. So let's take a moment to think about the things that we can do as trusted adults, whether you play the role of being a parent, a caregiver, a teacher, a school staff, a mental health professional. What can we do to help prevent suicide and decrease this number of teen deaths by suicide? An important take-home message is how caregivers can partner with school counselors, mental health staff, and other professionals to help keep kids safe. If you're ever concerned about a child, please know that you can reach out to your student's academic counselor, to the dean or the principal at your school, even their teacher. Or if your child is like a client of ours, please reach out to us as well. And all of those professionals, all those people would be happy to support you in the commitment for your child. And we'll also provide some more resources in a minute. Again, some of those that we've mentioned before, but there's plenty of people that you can reach out to for support because, yeah, we don't want to be in this alone. So I believe that this is me to go over the local resources. So yeah, we've mentioned some of these already, but the access number, again, if you didn't get a chance to put these in your phone earlier, please do so now. So the Santa Barbara County access number right here is 888-868-1649, and it is run by the Santa Barbara County Department of Behavioral Wellness. It's their crisis response line, and they can also link people to services. It's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for people of all ages. So I recommend that people reach out to this number if maybe perhaps they're experiencing some suicidal ideation, if there's like a crisis or a fight, or they're not feeling safe at home, or if they're having a mental health emergency, panic attack, they don't know what to do, they could reach out to this number. It's really a good one to have, and another great way to get connected with other services. Secondly is safety. And it stands for, I honestly can't remember exactly what it stands for. I think it's Safe Alternatives for
Treatment.
something. Oh, we should have, sorry, we didn't include that, but it's a mobile crisis response team. So the first step would be to call them, and it's available 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. for people ages 0 to 20 years old. So the first step would be to call them. And we utilize this phone number a lot for us with our clients. Like if some of our clients during a session or outside of a session are experiencing suicidal ideation, it seems fairly lethal or not, we'll just call them to consult. Maybe like, hey, this is where the student's at. What do you recommend we do? Maybe they'll say, hey, thanks for calling, but it seems like the situation's stable. Or maybe they'll say, hey, can I get on the phone with them too? And then they'll ask some questions, kind of like some of those questions that we talked about before. Do you ever wish that you could fall asleep and not wake up? Are you thinking about suicide? And they'll ask a lot more questions. And if they determine that perhaps there's a higher need, they are available to come to wherever that youth is. So it's a really helpful resource. And I know, of course, with safety measures in place, but they are available even to be mobile and come to where the youth are at, even during COVID, which is pretty great. So another resource we want to share is YouthWell. Here's their phone number, and here is their website. They provide a lot of great resources and services as well. And we want to emphasize again that the academic counselors at your children's school, they're able to provide a lot of different referrals. They can provide referrals to us, the mental health counselors and therapists, to do a screening of the students, see if there might be some services that could be helpful for them. And the academic counselors can also provide referrals to other resources in the community. So we just wanted to leave you all with that.
Devin, I just wanted to mention one thing on YouthWell. They also have information as well as on the FSA website for the youth mental health first aid training, which Raquel is a trainer for as well. So if you would like to continue learning more about how to support your child or your students in mental health, there is, I believe it's a 1-day training, and it's like first aid for mental health specifically for youth. So that information is also located in the Youth Well information and resources and on the FSA website as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
thank you.
great.
It's a great course, and it's available to anyone in the community that want to take it. I really recommend. It's been wonderful to lead those help lead those courses, so that the more people in the community are equipped to help our youth.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you, Devin and Raquel.
Did I skip one?
Thank
Sorry,
you.
I think, oh no, this is good.
SOS
Sorry,
parent page. Okay.
I'm getting jumbled up. I apologize.
There is additional resources for parents regarding the SOS curriculum. If you would like to learn more, you can head to this website here. And there's videos, clips, more about the curriculum, a questionnaire. So if you would like more information about this program, there's also parent resources available.
You, Kara and Devin. So again, just this is just a basic summary. This little figure here is a basic summary of what we talked about today, the acronym ACT. So basically this infographic is also available in your SOS portal. I really encourage you all to have this maybe hanging on your fridge. This could be a really great way to start a conversation with your student. So that they can see something that they can look at any time and maybe have questions about it, have questions about what the A means and what the C means and what the T means. And so here, as you can see, some steps of, we talked about earlier today during our presentation, acknowledge that you're seeing signs of suicide in your child, showing them that you care, asking them to tell you more about it, asking open-ended questions, and then tell a professional if you're having concerns about your child's safety. If you're feeling like they maybe be considering suicide, you don't have to deal with it alone. We are really lucky in our community that we have lots of really wonderful resources within the schools and within our community to help support you with what your student or maybe a student that might be dealing with. So I really recommend having this at a place where the whole family can look at. So it sparks that conversation. It's something that's readily available that you don't have to think too much about, and it's right there. If you forget about some of these steps or some of these things to look, to pay attention to, like for instance, signs, then it's right there. So it's easy to remember, and it could help spark a very important conversation.
Yeah. Awesome. So we just want to thank you all for being here. I know we've probably said that 27 times, but really, I think it's pretty amazing that you've all shown up. I think because you're all here spending your Wednesday night with us for an hour talking about signs of suicide, I think that shows that you really do care. And so I just want to praise you all and acknowledge that. Yeah, parents and caregivers, adults, we really do play an important role in youth suicide prevention, which I know can maybe feel like a heavy thing, a heavy burden to carry. But I just want to remind us all that this is a community thing. We're not alone. We're not alone. There's plenty of resources out there. There's people that you can go to for support. So yeah, we really appreciate all your support of youth suicide prevention in our school and community. And we just want to encourage you to continue to show care and love to the teens, to the youth, and the other people in your life. I think just showing up for them, asking them how they're doing, spending intentional time with those people can really go a long way. And just getting to know them so you can notice perhaps what those warning signs might be could be really helpful. So thank you for being here. I think that now we can transition to a time of Q&A. So if you haven't already, please do go ahead and send any questions or comments or thoughts you might have to Raquel, Kara, or myself via the chat. We'd be happy to go over those questions. I think that I have one question that I could pose, but I don't know if maybe Kara, it seems like you might have a question that perhaps you could say first the answer to.
Yeah, I did have a question. We are recording this webinar and it will be posted on the FSA website as well as through SB Unified. And I wanted to let everyone know that there was also a Spanish version this evening at the same time, and that will be posted as well. And yeah, that was the only question I had. So if you have more questions, please feel free to send us a chat. Love to provide you with more resources and suggestions.
Kara or Raquel, I'm not sure if either of you would be able to maybe find the link on the FSA website and send it in the chat for where the webinar recordings are.
I can look
just so
for
you
it.
can check it out. I think it's like FSA, and then if you look under school counseling services, I think it's in that section. But one question that I have received says that it asks, what can you do if you know someone is suicidal but doesn't want to get help? And I think that's a great question. I'd love support from my colleagues here in answering this one. But one thing that comes to mind, if you know that they're experiencing some suicidal ideation but don't want to get help, is the portion of don't keep it a secret and be sure to tell somebody. So one thing I'd be curious about is when they say they don't want to get help, I'm kind of curious as to what kind of help they don't want to get. Like, would they be open, if they're a student, would they be open to maybe just having a screening, which is just an initial meeting with one of the mental health counselors at the school that they're at? That's like Kara, Raquel, and myself. That first meeting is just to check in with them, see how they're doing. We do a suicide risk assessment at the end of each of those screenings with the students. So we would be happy to jump in there and do a risk assessment of that student. Of course, there's always the element of that's our first time meeting them. So if you're in their life and see them regularly, you probably have a better idea of and more of a relationship to really know what their normal is. But that's one thing I'm thinking about. And I would really recommend also that safety phone number that we've talked about. You can give them a call. Even if you're not, well, if the person's under the age of 20, you can give them a call either with or without that person, and you can consult with them. Say, hey, these are the conversations I've had with this person. This is what they've told me. They'll ask you more questions in order to determine maybe what the risk level is, and they could provide some good expertise of the next steps. And those are some initial thoughts that I have. I guess another thing I would say is just to continue to keep that conversation going. Like we talked about, having the mini conversations. Maybe, I mean, you determine what frequency would be good, but maybe check in with them once a week. Like, hey, I just wanted to see how you're doing. Like, have you lately just kind of been thinking that I don't want to deal anymore? Do you ever think that life just feels like a lot? Do you ever think you just want to fall asleep and not wake up? Have you been thinking about suicide? Just checking in with them and saying, hey, I care about you and I care about your life. And that's why I'm asking these things. I think just checking in regularly would be another recommendation. Anybody else have any thoughts?
I agree. I mean,
Sorry, go ahead, Raquel.
I agree. Just showing the concern and asking those open-ended questions, maybe asking what is getting in the way of them getting help. Because sometimes, that could open up some doors there. Oh, I'm concerned about financially, like, how am I going to make that happen? My family's struggling. So again, asking these questions that will give you a better idea of what might be some obstacles for that person feeling like they can share or get the support too. So that's just another, something that popped up for me.
I had a thought also. I think it could be helpful to realize that there is a range of suicidal thoughts and actions, and also a range of care and help. So it could also be, depending on where that person is at in that process, if they're just having some thoughts, and that might be a good point to really advocate for them to start talking to someone before those thoughts become more frequent or more serious, and then they develop into a plan. And so that's something, again, a mental health professional can help you with, that assessment piece of where is this person at on the range of possibilities of suicide and suicide treatment. And maybe just taking it one step at a time, just encouraging them to talk to you is a place to start. And then maybe talking to, a therapist or a counselor, just again, recognizing that there's a lot of options, and maybe keeping that open so that they have some options to choose from, instead of it just being like, you have to go get help. Here's 5 ways that could be helpful for you, and present it more as options for help with different choices that they can make could be helpful as well.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. I would say also just reminding them that you care about them. I think that another element that can contribute to depression or thoughts about suicide is like, does my life matter? Do I matter? Do people care? So expressing to those people, hey, it could even be nonchalantly, like if it's your kid and they, help sweep the floor, did a chore or whatever, finding even the littlest thing and just noticing them, praising them for that can really go a long way. Yeah.
Beautifully put. Any other questions, guys? Anything else? Make sure to put it on the chat. We'll stay here a little bit longer if you need any support.
Yeah, definitely. Great questions, everyone. And again, we really do think it's cool that you're all here. It shows that you really care. So
thank you again.
Yeah, it's important. We'll stay here maybe 2 or 3 more minutes. Please don't be shy. Send us any comments or questions. Again, this webinar, the recording will be up on the website. I'm not sure exactly what the timeline is, maybe in a week or something. And our past webinars, we've been doing these on a monthly basis. Our past webinars are also on there. We've talked about self-care. We've had 2 different webinars about teen anxiety. So please do go ahead and check those out, and do reach out to those resources that we provided. Within the coming weeks and months, some of the students, I believe 7th graders, 9th graders, and is it 11th or 12th?
12th graders.
12th. Those are the ages, the grades of students who will be presented the Signs of Suicide curriculum. So if you have children or know people with children who are in those grades, you'll definitely be hearing more about that, and they'll be going through this curriculum soon. So yeah, we're glad that we were able to go through some of the info with you beforehand.
Yeah, and then Kara posted the link there for the YouTube channel for FSA in the chat. If you want to look at, like Devin was saying, any of the other webinars that we've done, and this one should be ready, I'd say maybe like within maybe 10 days or so, usually, to do that. So make sure if you have any friends who have questions about it, send them the link or point them in the right direction, so that if they didn't have a chance to be here tonight, that they have a chance to watch it too, or any of the other ones that we've done before. It could be really helpful.
Alrighty, everyone. I think that we can probably safely assume that there's no more questions. So speak now. that's not the case. But otherwise, we hope you have a great evening. Hope you can go get some dinner or some food and enjoy the rest of your week. And we're wishing you all are healthy and safe. And just go ahead and put on the Yule log with the music to wrap it up here, because why not?
Thank you all so much for being here this evening. Thank you for being a trusted adult for child in your life.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you all for being here and making a difference. We appreciate you spending, this hour with us.
Favorite thing.